What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the vlog. My name is Filip Latocha, and today I'm going to be recapping the River Grove 5K race that I did today, a couple hours after the race. A little exhausted and whatnot, but I just want to share my thoughts overall on the race. Basically talk about the tactics, the pre-race game plan, and more or less address one of the questions I had about the field that I was racing today and my thoughts on it ultimately. So before we get into it, you guys know how this works. Like, subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber to this channel and you're consistently watching and enjoying this content, thanks so much for the support. Love you guys a lot. Without further ado, let's talk about it. So, first things first, the River Grove 5K. This is the first time I have raced a 5K in over 3 years now. The last time I did a 5K was actually this race back in 2018. I was going to do it in 2019, but because Ironman Madison 70.3 was literally the day after this race, I opted out of doing it. And basically, the 3 times I've done this race in 2017, 2018, and this year, I placed 6th place twice. One year, I believe I ran like 22-minute 5K. 2018, I ran like a 20:30, and then this year, I obviously won the race with a time of about 18 minutes and change because there was some inaccuracy with the timing of the course and there were some slight adjustments and things like that. So basically, it wasn't the perfect 5K. I think it ended up being like 3.2 miles, if just not a little bit less than that. I'll post the Strava somewhere here, wherever it is. And yeah, we'll just basically kind of go into it. So, pre-race was kind of a disaster for this race, in my opinion. I did have a pretty good dinner the night before. I didn't excessively work out. I did do like a 5-mile run. I did a little bit of weightlifting. I didn't do a whole lot of swimming, no biking, nothing like that. I just said, find a movie or a few, just sit down, relax, just go into like a self-induced lockdown, more or less. So I wasn't going to strain myself, so I was going to recover and just be in the best condition possible for the day of the race. So what happened then was it was about 1 o'clock, 1:30 a.m. I was ready to go to sleep, get like 5-6 hours of sleep before the race. And because I am the on-call analyst for my job, there was a call escalating an incident, and I had to stay up for a few minutes. I think up to about 30-40 minutes to work on said incident, and I was basically in bed by about 2:30. So already my sleeping schedule was a disaster, but does it ever go to plan? Never. Absolutely not. So that was kind of the pre-race idea here. So let's talk about the race itself and how getting to the 5K start and finish line ended up being a success overall. So first things first, I did all my warm-ups pretty much as planned. I added a few other things like a really easy warm-up jog just to kind of get things firing, just get the fit of the alpha flies right before I hit the ground running, because this was my issue at the last race I did, which was back in Florida, which was one of these 10Ks, and because the shoe was loose and I was running on a slightly crooked asphalt, I guess you can say, it started really taking a beating on my ankle, and that's ultimately what caused me to DNS 2 races in a row, which is pretty bad in my opinion, and I think it's bad for anyone if you can't race because you're injured twice. So anyways, I digress. What happened was the fit was good. At the start line, everything is going according to plan so far, and of course the gun goes off, and based on what I see in the field, it's going to be a pretty straightforward race. I remember in previous years there would usually be a pretty good pack going across the race at about anywhere from like 6-minute to 5:50 pace. This time around we get 2 guys that I consider pretty passionate runners based on the way they just shot off the start line, just going out full speed, about my age, I would say, if not slightly older, and they're taking it away. But I know tactically, I just gotta let them expand themselves, just kind of see what happens. If one guy starts really pulling away and he doesn't look like he's got any sense of stopping, I'm gonna try to catch up to him and, start working off him, and maybe we would start switching off, working together. You know how this goes. So that was basically going to be my plan moving in, and there was a group of about 4 of us, and it eventually broke into this one guy who sprinted away, starting to like kind of pull back because no one was necessarily going with him. So I went around him and kind of kept my distance from him so he couldn't necessarily grab onto me in any sort of way and kind of get pulled by me. And then the guy who was way up in front, he was trying to desperately to hold this pace together, but I'm not really judgmental on like people's clothing or anything like that, but you know, I am like aware of running shoes while I'm racing and whatnot, and I can usually make a pretty good judgment about 90% of the time based on your shoes if there's going to be something serious going on here, or if I need to, you know, just kind of stay out of my way and kind of work my own race. So I think this guy had like a pair of Peg 35s or Peg 36s of some sort, and I figured, okay, this guy like went out, you know, pedal to the metal for the first minute and a half of the race. I think he's going to burn his entire candle in one go. I'm going to let him run the straight line, and I'm going to kind of push away to the side, maybe give like 2 feet, 3 feet away from us, and I'm just going to work my way up and kind of just like zigzag back in. And that was the ultimate plan because I didn't want him to, you know, kind of catch up to me and get a psychological benefit of having me in front of him and just more or less, you know, dragging him along for the ride. So I ended up breaking at least him on the run, and the other guy was starting to fall back a lot, but I saw that there was still a pack developing behind us of a lot more veteran runners, I guess we can say, because we're going to address this in the later part of the video and whatnot. So as we're going now on this straightaway about to the mile 1 marker, the plan I had before this race obviously was, at this specific point in the race, once we do the turnaround to go back the same way we came from, was to do about like a 20-30 second surge to psychologically break the field. And I'll be the first to tell you that went exactly as planned, and it was probably one of the best tactics I've ever had from a running perspective. Basically what happened was I took the turn pretty wide, because this is, I think, a mistake a lot of runners make. So if I'm going to pretend like this is, you know, the cone that you're racing from, most people will like run and they're going to hug this cone as closely as they can, and they lose a lot of speed when they stay really narrow into it and then come out this way. What I did was I was pretty much on the outside. I kind of swung on the outside, gave myself a bit of a surge, kind of came in here, and then swung wide on the outside and kind of came up this way. And essentially as I came up on the outside there, I just gave it about a 20-30 second surge, and I was able to break about a 20-30 second gap in between me and second place and that wolf pack forming behind me. So at this point of the race, it looks like I've got everything under control. My brain is starting to feel a lot like the first race I had in Florida, where I'm in the front pack, I'm basically in the lead by myself, and the game plan now essentially is just hold on for dear life. If we can PR, give it a try, but for the most part, play a tactical, play an easy race. And this was for 2 reasons. One, about early on in the race, I was feeling really nauseous right away, because going from like a resting heart rate to about 180 in like 30 seconds is a real shock to your body. So that really did hit my body pretty hard, to go out guns a-blazing and just feeling like nauseous and feeling like I was just going to puke in like the first half mile of the race. And I was feeling that. I was doing my surge too after mile 1. So again, I took it really easy after that surge, and essentially had the psychological benefit of following the event manager's bike throughout the entire course. And this is probably one of the greatest things about racing, at least in this particular case, is when you're in the lead pack and you have that bike, you're no longer psychologically thinking about the course and thinking, oh man, like every step and like where I'm going to go and where I'm going to turn. You're focused on the bike, and you're basically also focused on your arm swing, and you're just focused on making sure you kind of follow his cues, or his or her cues, whoever is the pacer, not pacer, but like the course navigator per se, whether they're like pointing a certain direction or they're calling out water bottles or anything like that. It really takes a lot of pressure off you to have that about 20-30 feet ahead of you, just to have something to follow. It just really does help. So that was a really great thing from a tactics standpoint. So let's obviously mention this. In the first mile, I believe I ran like about a 5:30 pace. Definitely went really hard, but because of, you know, the experience I've got as a runner, I was able to kind of like ease back from that and not burn that candle entirely. And then about the second mile, I think it was starting to get to like 6-minute pace, which was like the ideal zone for me at this point, with the temperature being about 90+ degrees Fahrenheit. Just basically taking it easy, but not too easy where I can start losing time to second, third place, whoever else was in that pack. Now, by mile 2, everything is going pretty swimmingly, no issues whatsoever, still going at about 6 minute per mile pace. I'm able to get some water in me, so I'm no longer at the risk of dry heaving and stopping because I'm going to puke or anything. I've got water just to, like, douse my throat and just kind of take it easy. I pour some water down my back just to cool off. Everything is going pretty smoothly. Now, as we get to, of course, the very end of the race, I mean, it's self-explanatory. I had created such a large gap between second and third place that I essentially won by at least over a minute in a 5K. And now, obviously, in this 5K, that's a really big gap, but in something like a marathon or a half marathon, a minute is not a whole lot. That's like a pretty close race for some people, depending on how you look at it. It's still, I mean, obviously a defeat and whatnot. So, yeah, basically I do win this race at about 18 minutes and some change, but my watch time is about 18:30 and 3.2 miles. It is what it is. It's not like a big deal to me in any sort of way. So, yeah, I ended up running pretty much my own race after mile 1, after a very tactical first mile to break some of the early shooters in the field and prevent them from more or less grabbing onto the back of me while running and just having them fall apart on their own, either from a psychological breakdown of not being able to catch me or from just simply burning their candle at both ends and just kind of falling apart by themselves. So, this is where things in my social media comment sections kind of got not really spicy, but very questionable and inquisitive about the field that I was racing, because this also actually happened in Florida. What happens is I won the race in first place at age 28, right? In Florida and in this particular race, second, third, and fourth place is typically over the age of 35, if not over the age of 40 precisely. In this case, second place was about a minute behind, and he was about 50 plus years old. And you're probably telling yourself, oh yeah, that's a squash match. You basically beat a 50-year-old. And then third, fourth, and fifth were like also 50 plus years old. I think one of them was like at least 60, maybe two of them were. So now you start wondering, like, oh, was this field even competitive? Would you have even, even if I ran like a strictly time trial race and didn't try any tactics, like how big this gap would have been and whatnot? This is how I'm going to preface this whole answer to this question. Education is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Knowledge is knowing that you don't put a tomato in a fruit salad. How am I going to apply this now to running? It's going to go like this. Education is knowing that I'm 28 years old, second place was about 50 plus years old, and third, fourth, and fifth are like 60 years old. Knowledge is knowing this very important factor, which is you never underestimate an older runner. And I'm going to say that again. You never underestimate an older runner. And I'm not like an always or never type of person, but this is basically a never that I'm like going to go all in on, because if I had $1 for every time someone over the age of 50 finished a race before me in a better time than I did in the course of the last 7 years, I would have lots of dollars, like probably over $100 from like one Chicago Marathon alone. So put it this way, for a 50-year-old person to run a sub 25K is probably one of the more amazing things that happened during that race. In fact, it's pretty bad that I ran a 18-minute and change 5K compared to that. But it doesn't obviously take away the fact that I won the race. That's kind of clear as day. But you need to understand that some of these older runners that are well-conditioned and veterans of the sport have better defined slow twitch muscles, and may in some cases, besides having a slightly lower VO2 max because of just natural degeneration, have potentially better slow twitch muscle development. Therefore, they would have better endurance, and they can also put up a really good fight in a longer run if this was something like a 10K or a 15K, and I had to fight them at that level. Luckily for me, I am me, and like I know what I'm capable of. Like, I'm not gonna let someone try to take me down like that without a good fight. So in other cases, like for example the two guys who sprinted out well before me, if they were taking their time and riding a more conservative race, they might have been able to take a spot better than getting lapped by the 50 and 60 year olds who ran a much smarter race, a more consistent race, and were a lot stronger because of that veteran experience. And obviously it goes to their credit not to try and to tail on to me, because there was no way they were just no way they were going to keep that 5:50 6-minute per mile pace with me. They were able to keep like a 6:15 6:10, and they were comfortable in that range. There was no sense in trying to like fight me in that kind of realm of things. So I'm just going to end that thought there, of course, that you never underestimate an older runner, especially if they're like 50 plus years old, with a cap at about 75. I don't think I know too many 75-plus-year-old runners who are actively racing that are not anomalies in any sort of way. But yeah, the point here is I have been beaten by many runners who are significantly older than me, and I've seen some really amazing older runners do much more amazing times and have much more amazing races than me. And the guys who like won second, third, and fourth place and so on were actually in really good shape, and like I am proud of those guys because they really do set a high bar for somebody who's in their 50s and 60s to actively run, actively stay in shape, and have a good fitness throughout their entire lives. So hopefully when I'm 50, I can kind of do the same thing and like lose just a minute on my 5K or like keep the same time. That would be fantastic, more or less. So that's kind of where I'm wrapping up that thought, I suppose, that despite the age of the field, you should never underestimate the age of your field, because you would be surprised how many 50-year-old plus dudes can just stomp you if you let them, or if you come in with a cocky mindset that isn't prepared for what kind of beating they can provide. So I'm going to end this video here. Basically, yeah, I mean, it was a really good race overall. I enjoyed it pretty much. No issues. I ran the best possible race I could that day based on the temperatures and whatnot. And I guess the last thing we can talk about, of course, is this medal or the trophy that I got for being overall male. That's probably the thing I want to address. The award says overall male winner. That's pretty awesome. But this box says overall male. Now, this is the part that I'm going to keep. The trophy can go in the trash. This overall male, it's not specific as to what I'm the overall male of. So this could literally mean that I am just the greatest male alive. Better than like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Lionel Sanders, like you name it. Like I could be better because the box says overall male and I have it. That's pretty crazy in my opinion. So I don't know, just a thought that I am not the overall male 5K winner. I'm just the overall male. So, okay, I think that's where we're going to end this video. Thanks for watching this video. Definitely let me know in the comment sections below what you think about the race results. Do you guys have like the same experience as I have, where you race an older field and you're just shocked and blown away at like how fast some of these runners are? Yeah, let's just kind of go from there. Give me your thoughts on it. So with that in mind, thanks for watching the video. I'll see you guys real soon.